Heroes and Generals is coming back. Not as a fan remake, not as a nostalgic reboot, but as an official trademarked revival built from the ground up in Unreal Engine 5. And a complete redesign of the original. Now, does that spark up some red flags? Maybe it does. However, I've been given some exclusive information that I thought I'd part to you guys, so I thought, let's delve into it, let's see what this revival is really going to be. All in the same time, having a bit of a skeptical mind at exactly what we're going to get as the final product. Because, I mean, for a decade, Heroes and Generals was one of the most ambitious free-to-play FPSs of all time. It was a World War II sandbox where an FPS battle, well, the battles weren't just matches, right? They were huge wars that were going off in different theaters, and every win was, I guess, in some ways important, right? However, it kind of fell apart. Today, a new studio has stepped forward claiming not only the rights to the name, but a complete plan to rebuild the entire franchise from scratch. Ethically monetized, which is such a big one, I think, for especially this game, make it community driven and with a redesigned war map meant to fix the core problems that kind of, well, left the original in the dirt. This is the story of what really happened to Heroes and Generals and why the revival means something incredible for the future of large-scale FPS games. Heroes and Generals launched with a dream few studios dared to attempt, a persistent World War II MMO FPS. Thousands of players fighting over a changing front line. It wasn't really just an FPS, and it wasn't just a strategy. It was a combination of both fused together, a way that kind of felt decades ahead of what most people had tried to do, especially because the game was free. Whose idea was this? I don't care. I'm downloading it anyway. I had so much fun dropping into these maps with friends, riding on the back of push bicycles, having a map that you could physically look up, but it would block your entire view and you'd crash into the canals, or, you know, players bombing you from afar with fighter planes. It was something to behold. All of this in a free-to-play package. Players didn't just drop into these maps though, they dropped into battles that actually mattered. If you lose a city, your faction would lose it on the world map. Lose too many tanks, they were gone until commanders deployed more. And for a moment that sort of worked, and people were pretty on board. I mean, Heroes and Generals attracted millions, and I mean millions of players. Making it free-to-play, of course, made it so much more accessible, but it was also runnable on terrible systems. But they delivered the closest thing that the genre has ever had to true combined arms, especially within World War II. Yet internally, things weren't looking so good. The stability, well, was about as good as a wonky chair. The monetization model kept edging towards pay to win. This was, of course, annoying the players that had stuck with it for years. The war map became dominated by wallet veterans, people that would just throw money just to win a territory. Faction identity started to blur. I mean, everyone could unlock the same gear. Technical issues and aging engines created a lot of bugs, and the studio behind it, Ritomoto, struggled kind of financially because of, well, the structure that the game had been set up in. By 2022, the game was dying, and by 2023, it collapsed entirely. The original codebase was sold off and Heroes and Generals effectively vanished, so we assumed that it was gone forever, right? Well, not entirely. In fact, we had a very small peak of a revival of the original Heroes and Generals by the developers themselves. In fact, they had a Kickstarter of Heroes and Generals 2 being on Unreal Engine 5, and it didn't do particularly too well. But it was then, in California, an independent director called Zachary R. Olson quietly began to revive the game and a full rebuild. He founded a new studio, Insight Interactive, with a very simple motto: keep playing and we'll keep it alive. Unlike previous attempts, this revival, though, wasn't a mod, a remake, or just a simple fan project. It was an officially trademarked continuation of the game that came before. They bought this stuff. The original assets and codes remain with, well, the original guys, but this means that having the actual trademark, you can build a World War II FPS and call it Heroes and Generals. This isn't Heroes and Generals 2, it isn't a remaster, it's a complete rebuild of the original concept. So what does that actually mean? And what are all these red flags that keep going off in my brain actually indicate towards? You see, the new Heroes and Generals is being built on Unreal Engine 5. It's got this hybrid structure of having the small in-house creative team partnering with AA development studios handling the large-scale production. This approach kind of avoids the traps that the original fell into, trying to run a massive live service game with such a tiny team and inconsistent funding. The vision for this is, of course, the authentic World War II combat with faction-locked gear this time, so you're not able to just put on your enemy's helmet, rebalanced strategy-focused war maps, fair progression, and absolutely zero pay to win. Modern infrastructure with stable servers, and seasonal historical events for long-term engagement and community-driven development. A lot of this is going to be completely transparent, and they're going to introduce developer blogs as this goes on, hence why they contacted me and said, this is our plan, this is what we've got behind it, this is who we are, and this is why we think this is a legitimate project. One of the most important things is true faction identity. No more unlocking enemy guns, no more weird cross-faction setups. US weapons and uniforms are US only. This includes all the vehicles. German equipment stays German, and Soviet equipment stays Soviet. It is a small little tweak, but one thing that drastically strengthens the immersion, and things that I think kind of indicated towards the original getting a bit more, or at least a bit too arcadey for the veteran player. And then the biggest fix of all, and this is monetization. The original Heroes in General was infamous for borderline predatory monetizations. A lot of their vehicles were pay to win. They had boosters that affected competitive outcomes. Aside from gauging entertainment, making War Thunder, Heroes in General was the next best thing to a slot machine within gaming. The progression walls you could only realistically bypass with money unless you put hundreds of hours into playing this thing for free, which, you know, most people that want some sort of mortgage in the next 10 years aren't going to do. The Revival's monetization system is trying to be the exact opposite. Cosmetics only, no buying progressions, no pay to win boosts. Everything gameplay related is only earned through, well, playing the game. This alone is enough to bring back a massive portion, I think, of the old fan base. People didn't leave the game because they hated it. They just got tired of being preyed upon, their money sucked out of their wallets and not seeing any return for it. And even if they did see a return for it, the players that didn't have the money to spend or didn't want to spend money on, well, digital products were left behind. So the player base dwindled. And that is one of the real reasons that the game died. Let's talk about that war map though. They're going to completely rebuild it. Strategy over anything else. The war map was kind of the heart of Heroes and Generals, but it's also a big reason it imploded. A lot of the old player base controlled everything. They got in early and they had full control over where everything would go. People that could spend money, and I mean thousands of pounds or thousands of dollars, as we call them whales in the gaming industry, they controlled all the supply lines, meaning that sure, you wanted to go to war or you wanted to play a game, you couldn't until that guy that was sitting in his basement with his dad's credit card actually paid a transactional fee. New players had zero influence and battles just felt recycled and disconnected. Insight is trying to do a full redesign here. Strategy matters a lot more than spending. Unit deployments are balanced and fair. No more overwhelming veteran domination, and the dynamic front lines are going to be big strategic decision-making points. Battles are going to feel significant again. They're going to impact the global war, and more importantly, every player has a role to play, no matter what their bank account looks like. So how does the development timeline look? August of 2024, the trademark was filed, and in July of 2025, so very recently, a statement of use was filed and completed. The website has not officially been released, although I have got an early link to it, and it's pretty basic at this point in time, but it gives some decent information, and it won't be until 2026 when they go into transparent funding. This is going to be very publicly tracked, tied to real development milestones. No vague promises, no trust us, actual numbers, actual progress, with the hope of a 2027 early access prototype. This is a long timeline, but a fairly realistic one, and whilst I think a lot of people might have doubts, and me too, I think it's an important one to pay attention to. Of course, crowdfunding is always something that is a risk when you put your money towards it, but you don't have to. For me, at least, for now, I'm going to be watching from the sidelines and making judgments of whether this is actually going to be a faithful recreation of a game that I actually love. Setting realistic timelines and hoping that they can build the trust back in. I think one of the interesting things is that Heroes and Generals has a terrible name at this point, and it does make me wonder why. Why Insight Interactive decided to go this direction. Because of course, really what they're doing is they're making a World War II FPS in the style of Heroes and Generals, but then they've trademarked and bought the actual brand. But Heroes and Generals doesn't have that goodwill behind it. Could they not have just made a new brand, or is the recognition of that name enough, and they think that they can do what it takes to turn around that bad will currently against the name? I'm guessing that's the reason that they're doing this. They know that people understand Heroes and Generals, what it's about, the type of game, and instantly recognize that name, but they also believe that they have what it takes to make people believe in the project again. But if you want to see more about Heroes and Generals and its revival, make sure you click that subscribe button, because I'm going to be bringing all the info. I'm currently working with the developers on every bit of information that comes out. Now, of course, this is not sponsored. They haven't paid me. They just said, here's some information, do what you please with it. And I thought, this is something that might interest you guys. So if this is right, leave a like on the video. But until then, I will see you in the next one.